look, I'm live. All right, turn off the fucking radio then. And this one was funny. I saw somebody was on Facebook. They were practicing hoodoo, and they got chastised by an initiated hoodoo practitioner that they were not practicing the real hoodoo because they hadn't gone through the initiations. I and nobody I know, and I pretty much know everybody, know of any hoodoo initiation. It is not a tradition that has initiations. I wouldn't even call it a tradition. It's fucking folk magic, okay? It's African American folk magic. A lot of people go on and on about cultural appropriation and whatnot. I think when you're using other people's practices, you know, you should do them respectfully, and you should learn where they come from. And I have. Now, hoodoo, as I said, African American folk magic. The second part's really important, because if the entirety of the African American population in America lived on an island, I might see the point. I still do. I think you need to do other people's practices respectfully, but the idea that the African Americans in this country never exchanged ideas with white people is pretty silly. Yeah, plenty of racism, plenty of segregation, yeah, terrible history we got. Plenty of white people hanging out with black people hanging out with white people. This is what we call cultural exchange. Ideas get passed from one group of people to another group of people, and it's an exchange. Hoodoo picked up things from other practices, and other practices picked up things from hoodoo. Like, I studied hoodoo. I studied, my first place I, specifically studied hoodoo was the Lucky Mojo course, which I don't recommend because they turned out to be racist. But one of the traditional methods that I learned with regard to making mojo bags incorporated the seals from the Greater Key of Solomon. And you print them up, you cut them out, you stick them in your mojo bag. And that's some appropriation right there. I guess really it would be appropriating ancient Jewish mysticism, really. That's where Solomon's works are coming from. I don't think that's a problem, though. Never any recognition to Solomon or studying Solomon's. Now, I don't know any hoodoo practitioners that have studied all of Solomon and know Solomon backwards and forwards. Now, I would say, studying hoodoo, I want to know it backwards and forwards. I want to know its origins. I want to know what it came from. I want to know where each little part came from. So that's me. But then, on the other side of things, when other people appropriate things, I seldom see the same respect given that. I saw actually it was, hoodoo and conjure is kind of hard to tear them apart, but they are slightly different practices. But I did see a conjure practitioner posting a witch's bottle as a conjure practice. That's cool. It can be a conjure practice, but it did not originate with conjure. That's why it's got the name witch's bottle in it. Witch's bottles have been discovered in recent years, older than this country, buried in England. I think they found one 200. It's close to 300 years old. This thing had been buried, a place where there used to be a house, but there's no house there anymore. Witch's bottle's ancient and definitely is found in England, but then I see hoodoo and conjure people claiming it is theirs, and that's okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't own it. that's for sure, although I'm a witch. But I don't see that same cultural respect done in reverse. It's like, you borrowed something from European witchcraft. That's cool, but me being a European witch primarily, with just a little bit of African blood, a little bit, but really, you know, we all really came from Africa. But a little bit of African blood. You know, when I practice those kind of things, I want to find out about them. But then you got people out there selling initiations it's a non-initiatory system. It's folk magic. Folk magic that just happens to have come from the African Americans. But again, African American. It did not come from Africa. There may be some spiritual beliefs that were brought over from Africa. Hoodoo's not African. It's African American. So it's conjure. And although I find conjure kind of cross culture, I find some really old conjures that were not specifically African American. They're just folk magic from people living up in the hills. Hillbilly magic, really. But none of that has really anything to fucking do with anything. But these people selling initiations, I just don't fall for that kind of shit. There are traditions out there that require initiation. I don't even think Wicca requires initiation. I do not subscribe to the idea that Gerald Gardner owns Wicca. He may have started some shit, but turned out there were a lot of other people on that same trip right about the same time. He originated a lot of stuff, or well, actually he originated nothing. He put a bunch of stuff that he found in a blender and originated the soup that came out of the blender. He originally put that out there, but he doesn't own it, and nobody's required. Hello, Heather. And nobody's required to initiate. Just ridiculous shit. Now, what I found is I'm an older witch. I've been around a long time, you see. I've been through trends. I've been around since before Wicca was really the dominant faction on the craft landscape, and all the way through that to the other end where it is now not the dominant faction again. And for a time period, absolutely it was. And what I found, my predecessors did the cultural appropriation for me. I was like, I grew up on fucking High John roots, and it's a root. We were taught, okay, when I was taught root work, they used the word root work, it was a part of wart cutting. It was a part of herbal magic. And in that school, there were times for branches, times for leaves, times for buds, times for flowers, times for roots. The root of a plant was used for a different problem than the rest of the plant. Each piece of the plant was used specifically, and that's an element of wart cutting I have not seen in a long time. I think it's a dead art, but it was called working the root. I find a lot of recipes I grew up with. Let's see, crown of success. I make a crown of success my whole life, from the same recipe that most people brew crown of success, and now it turns out that's a conjure thing or root work thing. Fuck, I didn't even know that, man. Witchcraft borrowed all kinds of shit. Gardner's Wicca borrowed heavily on ceremonial magic. I guess that's not really cultural appropriation because it was all, you know, done in the European strain, so nobody fucking cared. But Gardner himself was an ultimate cultural appropriator, and this is the problem I have with all these staunch things like that. Gardner, the whole story is that he retired after a lifetime of studying religio magic around the world, and then he started this thing that he called Wicca. Now, you could not do that and not have included the little things that you picked up and put in your bag of tricks along the way, and nothing wrong with that, because there's no one truth in the world. There's no one system intact. And here's one, you know, for the staunch hoodoo people. I'm so, way up in the hoodoo community, and so I know I'll piss some people off, but I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care if you're hoodoo. I don't care if you're Palo. I don't care if you're voodoo. There is no intact, pure magical system on this earth. There is no pure, intact magical system on this earth. Not hoodoo, not conjure, not witchcraft, not Wicca, not ceremonial magic. Ceremonial magic probably is the closest because they wrote everything down and their books were not burned. But therein lies the rub. These other ones I was talking about, hoodoo doesn't like to write things down. Although the reason we know about hoodoo is because Hyatt, was it Hyatt? I think it was the Hyatt books, probably one of the largest things why we know about hoodoo. So he wrote everything down. He went around and interviewed African Americans about their spiritual beliefs, and he wrote it all fucking down. Palo, against the rules. You can't write it down. Voodoo, I'm pretty sure they don't write it down either. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let me know how that works out for you, because it ain't worked out for anybody else. There is no oral, magical, or spiritual tradition or pagan religion on the earth that remains intact, because we all learned how to play the game of telephone. You whisper something in somebody's ear, they whisper that thing in the next person's ear. When it comes back around you, somehow it's not the same thing that you started with. The story changes depending on who's telling it. That right there was considered sacred by the bards in the Celtic systems. They didn't write anything down, so it would change. So the story would stay alive. They believed you killed the story by writing it down. And to the bards, the story was the most important thing. Different schools of thought there. But when I see people telling people, like, oh, that's not real hoodoo. Oh, that's not real conjure. Oh, fucking bullshit. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. There is no pure hoodoo. There is no pure conjure. There's no pure witchcraft. There's no pure fucking anything. Like the white supremacists are finding out when they're getting their DNA tests and finding out they have African blood. Gotta love this planet sometimes, people. So at any rate, that's my rant. You know, don't pay anybody for an initiation into hoodoo. Plenty of places out there to learn. I don't recommend Lucky Mojo anymore, but you know, and troll my friends list on Facebook. Half of them, you know, look at half of the white faces and most of the dark faces are hoodoo practitioners, conjure practitioners, and one black Republican Trump supporter. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't know. But yeah. So here's the thing I have to say. Piss everything off. Your shit ain't wired tight. Your shit ain't pure. Your grandmother didn't fucking teach you it. And if your grandmother had taught you it, she picked up a whole bunch of other shit that people taught her along the way. Nothing wrong with that. But me, when I find a magic that comes from someplace else, I need to follow that pattern. I need to know it. And that's, to me, that's what a witch is all about. And thank you. Thank you for my shirt. I love this shirt so much. I keep washing it every day so I can wear it so it won't stink. But got it from Jason Mankey. Is it Jason Mankey? Yeah, I think it was Jason Mankey. I don't know if he originated it, but you know, I guess it's for the bro witches that don't want to go so far as to use the word warlock. You know, we need our own identity, I guess. Let's see. Did I finish my thoughts on there? Nothing pure. Nothing's ever going to be pure. If you want it to be pure, write the shit down. Oral traditions will never be pure. Folk magics will never be pure. Mom always said, my witch mom, she said the difference between folk magic and witchcraft is the folk are doing the magics that they once saw a witch do. And they're assembling components that they saw the witch assemble without the actual knowledge of what's going on or why or what they're assembling. And those magics, you know, it can work that way. You're totally, you know, detached from it. But a witch needs to know why. why it works, how it works, what's going to make it not work. We need to know. So me, when I find a cultural expression of magic, I need to follow that pattern back to that culture, and then away from that culture back to how it got to me. And I think that should be the bottom line, the minimal amount of respect that you should give to somebody else's traditions. You know, learn a bit about the culture, respect the culture, respect those ancestors of that culture that brought you that cool thing that you're going to use. So do it respectfully. Yes, Frater X does rock. He's a good friend of mine. I don't know if a cult fan. I think you saw it, but I covered Frater X's show a couple weeks ago. It was called Mind is Magic. My viewers can probably guess where I went with that one, but yeah, check that one out on Frater X's page. Check out my podcast, me and Marta's podcast, on Tuesday nights on Spreaker.com /user/Widdershins. The podcast is called Widdershins. We're on Spreaker, we're on iHeartRadio, a bunch of other places. And, you know, if Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific time doesn't work for you, we're archived forever. And most of you probably know that it automatically gets posted to YouTube after the show, too, so you can just listen to it right here. See a lot of messages. I'm going to have to go back and look at the chat log, because sometimes people are asking me stuff in the chat when I'm driving, and I don't see that, so I will have to go check that out. Thanks for joining me on a video I didn't really know that I was going to do, or if I had enough to say on it, but I guess it worked out. All right. See y'all.